welcome into this amazing new episode of the Online Church Blueprint. I think we're on like episode 6 or 7. I don't know. I'm real bad with like looking at the past numbers and the past logs. I'm Andy. I'm one of your hosts here, and usually we're joined by Mark Lutz from Lux Digital Church. Today, however, we gave him a much-needed vacation. He's actually an hour and a half that way from me. So I'm in Tampa. He's in Orlando with his kids and his wife. They're doing Disney. They're doing it right. I'm proud of them. I'm happy for them. Happy that they're getting some days off. But the show must go on, you know, and we wanted to be able to bring you some amazing content. I've been talking with our good buddy, Tyler Sansom from Church Anywhere. If you've been in any of the digital church circles for any length of time, you've heard of his name, you've heard of Church Anywhere, you've heard all the amazing things that they've been doing in ministry and how they're caring for people. And so I asked him to be on the show and asked him to be kind of a co-host with us for a while, and he said yes. He blindly agreed to come on the show. And so you're going to be hearing from him in just a minute. The conversation that we're going to have is all about what it takes to be a digital pastor, because a lot of times people get into ministry and forget that you actually have to be a pastor. And Tyler's very good at being a pastor. He's very good at caring for people. He's very good at listening to people. He and his team are doing amazing things in the digital space. So this is a cool conversation. I'm super excited that I get the chance to share it with you. And yeah, we are off. Before we get there, however, remember a couple of things. First off, this is really an episode that is devoted to being a digital pastor. We understand that, but we also understand that you may have already your digital ministry up and running. And if you're looking for a great engagement tool, if you're looking for something that's really going to up the level of what you are doing in the digital space, check out Altar Live. It is a one-stop shop for all of your digital ministry needs. It is a live streaming platform. It is a community kind of engagement area. It is a meeting space that can replace Zoom or Google Meets or any of those kind of meeting things. And all for one price. You don't have to keep paying out licenses. You don't have to pay for multiple licenses. Just a really cool idea. You can get a 14-day free trial in the doodly-doos below and the links, or if you're listening to this in podcast form and listening to my mellifluous voice, it's a good word for you, you can check out the links in the show notes, altarlive.com for a free 14-day trial. And if you have any issues, reach out to us. We can always help you with all of those things. It is a platform that is on the move and is constantly changing for the better, constantly being, updated. And really, we've been seeing some really cool stories and some really cool numbers from the team over at Altar Live. So check it out. It will be worth your while. Okay, all of that's out of the way. Let's get to our conversation with Tyler Sansom. Welcome back to another action-packed episode of the Online Church Blueprint. It's not action-packed. We're in digital ministry. Tyler, have you ever had an action-packed day of digital ministry?
Oh, man, every day.
I can't, that's great. It's just gunfire and just,
Right.
it's just a basketball game happening behind you the whole time.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, I've James Bond rolled at least 4 times today, so.
I love it. Any lasers, any sharks with lasers type thing?
Mostly just this cow picture behind me.
So have you named the cow?
I have not. Maybe this is an opportunity for some of the viewers to name it.
So write in or look in the doodly-doo below and comment below, like what you would name that cow. It's a dude because it's got horns, so I don't know. I'm going to go with Igor or something like that. So we're giving Mark a break this week. Mark will be on with us next episode. But we wanted to bring in our good buddy, Tyler Sansom. Tyler has been running in digital circles for longer than we've mostly been alive, especially some of us who have been in the digital ministry sphere. And he is a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of resource that we're going to exploit / mine in a couple more episodes here. But Tyler, before we get there, I kind of want to go into your backstory a little bit. Tell us and the good fine folk of the Online Church Blueprint world kind of where you came from and how you got to what you're doing now.
Yeah, man, I went to school to play football. Like that was the only reason that I wanted to go to college, period. And my whole life dedicated to sports. Got to college and broke my neck immediately.
Whoa, really?
Yeah. And so I stupidly tried to go to another school, a much smaller school, and try to play again. And immediately broke my arm. So I had not been injured like my entire life and broke two significant bones right off the bat in college. So I knew something was telling me not to play football anymore. I wasn't like I grew up in church, but I wasn't like super strong in my faith or anything until I got to that second college, and my coach had just got out of the NFL. So he got a career-ending injury. He was like 35. It was the first time though that I had seen a guy that I really looked up to from a like this is a cool dude standpoint that also lived out his faith in like a practical way. So most of my upbringing was in like small country churches, and the pastors were like dudes I didn't want to hang out with. But my coach in college was like he just like knew he loved Jesus and lived like Jesus, no matter what the circumstance was. You could see Jesus through this guy, and so he ended up kind of mentoring me, helping me grow in my faith. And he actually is the one that had a serious conversation with me and said, I don't think football is for you. I think ministry is for you. And shortly after that, I was offered a worship pastor position at First Capital Christian Church, which is the church that I'm currently at. This was 10 years ago, so a decade ago. I was very young when I went into full-time ministry. It was one of those deals where, like, once I decided I was all in, like, I was like, that's the only option was to be a pastor. Yeah, and then I left First Capital after 3 years of being a worship pastor and went and worked at a really large mega church called Northview. And I was there for almost a year. Really felt God calling me out of worship ministry, and I didn't know what that looked like yet, but I called First Capital back and basically said, I will do anything you want me to do. Like, I'll clean the toilets, I'll do kids ministry, which is like the least thing in my wheelhouse humanly possible. And they said, no, don't do that. We'll figure out something. So I came back, and that's when we started Church Anywhere. We're in a really small town, 3,500 people. We're in the back end of a dead-end street. We have outgrown all of our physical space, like, period. We don't have any extra place we can build on our property. And we're in such a small town and a pretty decent-sized church that we can't find anybody to buy our land so we can go build somewhere else. So our option to grow was online. And this was back in, like, 2015 when, like, that wasn't really a thing yet. So we launched this full-on digital ministry that I got to lead for the last 7 years. And then I became the lead pastor last year of both Church Anywhere and First Capital. So I'm the lead over both ministries now.
So there's a weird hybrid approach that you're taking to digital ministry now, where you're doing it in reverse of most lead pastors or most church leaders. You started in the digital sphere, and now you're moving into the physical. Well, are now kind of presiding over the physical sphere. Let's kind of back up to the digital mindset. Like, what led you into that outside of like, hey, I don't want to clean toilets and they're going to find a space for me? Like, what is the thing that kind of you started to drill into? Do you have a passion for tech and digital like things and social media? Where does that come from?
Yeah, so I always wanted to make movies as a kid. That was since I was like 5 years old. I saw Remember the Titans and tried to like remake all of it with my cousins who are all also white, which is it's a movie about like racial reconciliation. It was like the worst VHS movie of all time that we made, but I've always wanted to make movies. So I always had that like tech background. I studied film in college until I transferred to the smaller school, and at Kentucky Christian they didn't have film, so I did audio engineering, but it was still like all in that creative tech world. And so we did a ton of visual medium ministry here at the church already. We made short films and things like that. So when I came back, I basically just said like, hey, we can't grow anymore here, but I think we can produce some content. And here's some stats to back this up. People are spending 6 hours a day on their phones. Why can't we be part of that? And that was kind of the pitch for it. And I also said, like, we need to make sure that we keep the social part in social media. And so we launched this, like, relationally. Because, like, I mean, people were searching at that time, like Stephen Furtick and Craig Rochelle. And, like, just there was a handful of large churches that had a good online presence at that time. Nobody was searching for us in Corydon, but what we could offer was relationships. And so we just kind of tried to hit people where they were at online with some felt need stuff, dive into building relationships, and then we saw both online and in person grow from that.
Fascinating. When you kind of made the switch over to being the lead pastor now, Does it feel weird to have to delegate some of those digital responsibilities to somebody else? Like, do you feel like somebody else is holding your child?
A little. So we made a conscious effort over the last couple of years to really try to make everyone both digital and in person. So like pretty much, there's like two people on our staff that we just can't make the switch. They're like some blue hairs. They try, but for the most part, every one of our staff and ministry leads know that they are responsible for both in person and online ministry, which is really cool to see. It's really cool to see like kids ministry embrace that, and utilize all these digital tools to stay in touch with their families throughout the week and expand their reach online. It's really cool to see, especially in our counseling area. We do a ton of Zoom counseling all over the country. So that's been just fun to see. So it doesn't feel like somebody's taking my baby because we've already made that before I transitioned into lead pastor.
That's fascinating. So, ostensibly, the Online Church Blueprint, as we've kind of outlined in many episodes before, this is kind of your how-to guide on how to get your online or digital, whatever ministry up and running, wherever you are. If you're a physical church that's trying to put digital roots down, if you are a digital church that's trying to really expand your reach, and a lot of times you need leadership over that. You can't just fire up a Facebook camera in the back like you could in the heady days of even 2013 and 2015. You could just throw a camera back there and hope people showed up. So if like, let's say you were instructing me on how to be a digital pastor, what would be the first thing you'd tell me?
Yeah, I would tell you it is so much less about tech. And I don't know our audience yet on this podcast because this is my first time on here. So if I offend somebody, I'm sorry.
Please do. Let it rip.
It's so much more pastoral than we want to make it. Like over COVID, I did a ton of consulting with churches all over the country, trying to get them like started in online ministry. And like 99% of the lead pastors I would talk to would be like, okay, I got to go hire like an IT guy, or I got to hire a tech guy. And like maybe there's a tech guy that's out there that loves people and loves talking to people, but it's not as common. And so the first thing I would say if you're starting out as a digital pastor, like you got to love people. You're still a pastor. Your desire has to be leading people and pointing them to Jesus, and like working weird hours because that's when people are online. It's very much more relational than we anticipate. So the first thing you have to do is like evaluate yourself. Are you actually cut out to be around people, or do you just love technology? Because there's a place for those people in ministry as well. It just may not be as a digital pastor.
What sort of training would a digital pastor need to go through in today's day and age?
Yeah, I went back to school to study digital communications. So like basically a social media degree. And that aged like after a year. But I think some training that could be useful would be, specifically in the online world, would be things like Google ad certification. Not necessarily to know how to run ads, but to understand how people search things. How to understand like the keyword planner and like what people are actually looking for. Because if you can figure out what people are actually looking for, then you can create content geared towards what they're looking for to start conversations and hit them actually where they're at. A good example of that would be He Gets Us right now. That's what they're doing. And so like some Google ad certifications would be good. Obviously, some theological training would be good because once you get into a relationship with someone, they're going to hit you with some like deeper questions eventually. So being prepared to either say, I don't know, and point them to somebody else, or know those would be great. But beyond that, like, I don't know how else to, I don't know what training exists to teach you how to be a people person, except just doing it. Like dive headfirst into it and just talk to people online.
Where do you recommend people start in terms of platforms right now?
I think it depends on your skill set. So like for a like institutional church, I would take whatever platform you already have the biggest audience on and then grow from there. I think a danger is like people love the idea of these tools so much that they spread themselves too thin and none of the platforms ever really catch on. And so you've got like a TikTok and an Instagram, and you're doing Twitch streaming and YouTube and Facebook, and you're in the metaverse, and like none of them are doing anything. depending on the size of your church and what resources you have, just pick whatever platform that you're most comfortable with and like start there. Start building relationships there. And then once you have that self like stable and it's self-sustaining, that's when you can start focusing on a second platform. For our size church, we're not like a really big church, and so we started pretty much on Facebook and church online platform when it went out, and now we utilize our website weirdly more than anything else because we run our Google ad grant through our website and hit people with felt needs and then funnel them down into like actual relationships and groups and things like that.
So you mentioned the Google ad grant. Are you guys utilizing that as well this year, or have you been, is this the first time you're doing it? Like, how's that been working for you?
We've been doing that since 2015. That's like one of the first things that we started doing. It's working really well. We have resource pages on our website that we've curated, which is a huge word here. We, even as a like filmmaker, I don't feel the need to make all of our content. I'm totally okay with using stuff that's already out there. So we have resources for like marriage, grief, anxiety, depression, eating disorders, like money management, all these different resources on our website that we use targeted ads on Google to send people to those resources. And then on the resource pages on the website, there's an option to talk to one of our team. It's our care team. And then we just get connected in a one-on-one relationship, and it's off to the races after that.
Is your care team volunteer or are they on staff?
It's a mix of both. Yeah, there's 4 people on our staff currently that are on the care team, and me included in that. And then we have, I think, 18 volunteers.
So this sounds more like a almost like a rapid response than anything else. That's what your Google AdWords are. When you guys are kind of putting those out, are you doing ads that are time specific, that are topic specific, that are, on a Sunday morning, all of a sudden ads start popping up about something? How does that work for you guys?
No, it's all the time. That's kind of dumb. I wish that it wasn't, but we found that people are all over the board online, especially now. Like we probably could have targeted that a little bit more narrowly when we first started out, but at this point, when we've got a bigger reach, it's kind of all over the place. So any time of the day, we're getting messages through our website platform, but the ads are very specifically targeted towards felt needs. So, and there's limitations to that, which is why Google ad training would be helpful. But things like sadness and like any of the keywords that are remotely close to sadness, we'll put that in one ad, stuff like that.
That's cool. Let's kind of back up then, because one of the things that I didn't have to struggle with at Bay Hope, and it sounds like you're not having to struggle with, is a leadership that would be resistant to doing digital ministry. Let's say I was somebody that was really super passionate about this, but my leadership was not. How do you counsel somebody in that area? I actually just got off a coaching call with somebody that I've been kind of mentoring and doing coaching with, and it ran a little bit over, which is why we're a little bit late recording this. But the guy is super, he lives in this area, lives in the Tampa area, super passionate about digital ministry, is kind of in an older Methodist church. He knows what he wants to do. His leadership doesn't see the value in it. And so he's having to self-fund things, but he's also like on a pastor's salary. And so he doesn't really have a whole lot of money to fund any gear. And so, he's doing what he can, but his entire line of conversation with me today was, how do I talk to people that are above me in the organization? How do I make them see that this is going to work?
Sure. Yeah, I ran into that at the beginning. Like back when we first started, there weren't a lot of churches doing anything beyond like a live stream. And still live streaming wasn't even like a really big thing. Like Facebook Live had just came out when we first started doing this.
Yep.
It was like the Wild West of online is basically how it was.
Those good old days.
Organic reach galore. It was awesome. So whenever I was telling our leadership about the idea, it was the first thing that was cut from the budget that year. And so what had to happen was basically I just like did it on my own, like what this guy is doing. And then anytime there was any form of win, I shared it. So one thing you can't argue with is life change. And when life change started happening and I shared that like annoyingly with our leadership, I mean, we got to a point where people were just like, we talk about church anywhere way too much, so you got to cool it. But I wanted to continue to show the validity of what me and my team at that point were doing. And so I think the more like life change that you can start showing, the more that people are going to be open to this idea. Plus, I mean, we are 3 years after the pandemic, 3 years post 2020 right now, and there was a seismic shift that happened in 2020 to where leaders like were forced into seeing at least a little bit of validity for digital ministry. So there's case studies everywhere that you can point to at this point that like this is a real thing. These are real people with real problems, and this is the area that they're in. And it just happens to be online and not in our building. I know that that's like a lot easier said than done. It's an uphill battle most of the time, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Like keep pressing on and showing that life change that happens, and eventually, like that's something you can't argue with.
Eventually, I want to have the conversation with you about how to measure "quote unquote" attendance, because that's something that comes up, and I hate
Yeah.
with an absolute passion that question.
We stopped measuring attendance both in person
Good,
and online. So
good. How's that felt so far?
really good. We started measuring next steps, and basically we it's way too. We'll do another episode on it, but
Yep.
we have an engagement percentage that we have combined in person and online of amount of people taking next steps.
I feel like back during at the beginning of COVID, when everything was blowing up, everyone was talking about multipliers. I remember seeing a graphic I think that you put out that was essentially like, no, here's the metric you need to use, and it was some sort of weird percentage thing. Is that still what you guys are going by?
Yeah, we had been doing that I think since 2018
Okay.
online, and then in 2021 we started combining that for both online and in person. Kind of coincided with whenever each person became digital and physical, and it's been a game changer, man. We don't go week by week now thinking, oh man, we had 300 less people or we had 500 more people, but no baptisms. Like now we're keeping the main thing the main thing.
Do you guys utilize TikTok at all?
So, sort of. We don't as an institution. We do as people we've trained to be like digital missionaries on that platform. People trust people a lot more than they trust institutions. And so we haven't seen a lot of success using something like that as a church. We've seen a ton of success using people who have like niche audiences. And so that's kind of how we've leaned into that platform.
What do you guys do for things like Easter or Christmas Eve, or the big tent pole things in the church calendar? How does that look for you?
So you're gonna laugh at this. With the shift that we did with not tracking attendance and making that the main thing, that and offering, we also don't make a big deal out of Easter and Christmas any
I love it.
longer.
I love it.
We have really, really tried our best here at the church to shift from attractional model to discipleship based model. And it turns out making disciples is the best evangelistic tool that we've
Go
ever
figure.
had. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
And so with that shift meant that like while thematically on Easter we'll talk about the resurrection, we're not doing any like big giveaways or like driving people in Hummers or anything from the parking lot anymore. It's really all kind of just like one regular weekend. So we don't do anything online that's different either. But we do some supplementary things online for Easter, like a Good Friday experience that's online, that kind of thing.
Cool. The kind of the last big question I'm going to ask, and then I got kind of some rapid fire questions so that the audience can get to know you a little bit. The big question is, do you guys, when you are sitting down and thinking thematically through your year, are you thinking, I want to guide a group of people to this step in their faith? Or are you thinking, this is what God has placed on my heart, so we're going to talk about Sabbath for this year and go that way? Like, what's the thinking both in person and digitally?
Yeah, so the theme for both in person and digitally matches. That's because obviously we couldn't ask our staff to be both in person and digital and have two themes. That'd be crazy.
Right.
We've been working quarterly, so we have a year's worth of themes, but quarterly, and this is part of a much bigger structural change. Quarterly, we get together and literally plan out the entire next quarter, but as a staff. So it's less top down, here's what we're doing, and more like straight across the line collaboration. And so everyone is aware of what we're all doing at the same time. with these. They're like mini retreats that we go on basically once a quarter. So the first quarter of this year is about deeply caring about people. The second quarter of this year is about pursuing redemption. The third quarter is about being on mission. And then the fourth quarter is about discipleship. And next year and last year, it was deeply caring about people, pursuing redemption, being on mission, and discipleship. We've decided to take our core values and do that quarterly. Now, that doesn't mean we preach or post everything that's about caring about people, but like right now, we're in a series about mental health because we want to care about people. And so we can, as a staff, collaboratively come up with themes and content online and in person around that caring about people topic, but maybe use a mental health bend towards it. So that's how that's a long way of saying we do it quarterly, and it's planned out per year, but broken down into our core values.
I got last question. I'm going to tack on one here. How has the response been from those in your church that were hesitant towards digital over the last couple of years? Like, because there's always been the holdouts. You said blue hairs on your staff, but there's also those people in your congregation. What's been the general feeling?
Yeah, I have personally not dealt with that in a long time. Cool. But back in like 2017, 2018, when we were really, like 2015 we launched it, 2016 we're learning, 2017, 18 is when we really started seeing some growth and life change. That's when we started getting people not understanding. And that was when I really learned the importance of communication. Because what I thought I would have communicated something well, and I said like 3 times, people in the congregation didn't hear that at all. So we just had to over communicate the purpose of why we were doing it. And what was really cool is that we started having some people that, specifically from some of our microsites that were in jails, they would get out of prison and start worshiping with us in person. So people in prison, sometimes, if they've been in there a long time, they don't have anywhere to go after they get out. So a lot of them just started like randomly moving to our town and worshiping with us. And that's when it really became like that online to offline relationship took off, and people really bought in because they could tangibly see the life change rather than us just showing a picture of it.
I love that. That's awesome. I've got a million questions for you, and I know the audience will as well, but enough of the serious stuff. Let's go to the fun stuff. So I got a couple rapid fire questions. Number 1, are you a gamer?
I want to be so bad, and I'm just not. I've tried so many times. I'm the most hyper person that you'll ever meet in your entire life. And so for me to sit down and for more than like 30 minutes, unless I'm like watching a movie, I just can't. I can't do it.
Not even Madden?
I tried. I've bought like. I haven't bought the last 2, but I bought all the way up to like Madden 21 or something, or 25, I think is what they call it. Yeah. It's like the GOAT edition.
Yeah.
And my wife and I tried to play. She's a diehard football fan. We tried to play together, and both of us we played like 6 games and then never touched it again. So
here, Madden has gone downhill. Okay, so when Mark comes back on, then you're going to be surrounded by gamers. So sorry about that.
That's fine. I love gamers. I want to be one. I don't have what it takes, man.
That's all right. What position did you play?
I played slot receiver, so I was like the guy that went across the middle and caught the passes.
You were Wes Welker getting just the absolute crap beat out of him.
Yeah.
hence the broken neck and the broken arm. There you go. Do you have any pins in your arm or anything like that?
I don't have any pins in my arm, so that's good.
Okay, awesome. Favorite movie of all time?
I'm gonna break it down into 2. Okay, my favorite movie to watch of all time is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. The most influential movie that I ever watched, and the reason I really, really studied film was Citizen Kane. Oh,
okay, great. Who's your favorite director then?
Ooh, that's a hard question. I love David Fincher and I love Quentin Tarantino.
Okay. What do you think of Fight Club then?
Oh, I like Fight Club.
Okay. Good. All right, cool. Because then you'll fit right in with me and Mark. It's like one of our top, and that makes us like adolescent boys. But whatever. Who you got on Sunday?
It's a really even matchup. I think it'll be Eagles, but I think it'll be close. So Eagles by 3, and deciding factor is that Mahomes isn't 100% healthy.
Yeah, okay, I can see that. Last question: who's your team? Who do you root for?
Oh, I don't know if I want to say.
Fair enough.
I am a diehard Patriots fan.
Uh-huh. I know. I was
So
leading that. I was leading that audio. When we a little behind the scenes, the last time Tyler and I met to talk about this, he was wearing a Brady hat, I believe, and a Patriots shirt. It was the day that Thomas J. Brady Jr. announced his retirement on the sands of Miami. I don't know if you saw, but some lady is selling the sand for $662.
like an absurd amount of money.
Yeah, she literally went to South Beach and just grabbed some sand and put it in a mason jar. It's like, here you go, eBay.
People are buying it too. That's what's crazy.
Hey man, side hustles for life. Am I right?
I really wish I had like a jar of it that I could have just like pulled into the screen right here. That'd been awesome.
Oh man, I think everybody's heart would have stopped. Tyler, I'm so grateful that you are here with us. I'm so grateful you're lending your experience to us. Any last words before we sign off for this episode?
No, I'm excited about it. We'll see where this goes.
Well, like I said at the very beginning, Tyler really has a pastoral heart. Even though he is a Patriots fan, he does love people, and he does really love what Jesus is doing in the digital space. And kind of the first couple of questions that I was able to ask him after his own history was, what does it take to be a digital pastor? And he essentially said, like, it's not about the tech. It's about the people. It's about caring for people. And that's the one thing that I hope you take from this episode. Thanks so much for joining us here on this episode. We'll be back next time with myself and Mark and Tyler for another riveting how-to on really getting your digital ministry up and running. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.